tell you, when things get complicated for me, this is typically what I do, is I will go to Genesis to figure some stuff out. And the reason why is because I believe the Bible is one story. And I believe Genesis is the origin story of the scripture. It's the origin story. It's our beginning. We understand things. The truth of the matter is, you will learn something about yourself if you go back to your origin story. Go back to your story of how you came into the world, who your parents are, what their intentions were for you, and that's when you learn a lot about yourself. When I look in the book of Genesis, from the very beginning, God designed humanity with a purpose. And we're going to look in more detail as to what that purpose is. But the truth of the matter is, God didn't create humans just for them to exist. God created us. He had a reason and a purpose. But here's what's interesting. You notice from the beginning, it wasn't about us. It is about him. That's why I understand this, and this is no shade to anyone, but be careful when, as a believer, as a Christ follower, who has a God of the universe that created and designed you, be careful when life becomes about finding your purpose. And you write your purpose statement. Because the challenge with that is that you've been created not for your purpose, but you've been created for his purpose. It is why we called our church Christ Our King Community Church. Why? Because we want to live life because we know there is a king who rules and who reigns. And guess who's not the king? It's not you. It's not me. It's not the king or the queen. Not the one that has authority. It is Jesus. And we're going to look at Genesis chapter 1, and we may get to 2 Corinthians chapter 9 to deal more with giving. But here's the thought that I really want you to let hang on your mind. Haman Cross, he said this, and I was only 20-some years old. Haman Cross said this. He said, let this thought hang on your mind and let the Holy Ghost blow on it. And that's what I want you to do right there. I want you to let this one thought hang on your mind. Here's what I want you to understand. God has designed us to be stewards to manage what he has made and to multiply what he gives. God has designed us to be stewards, to manage what he's made and to multiply what he gives. See, one of the realities is that in Genesis chapter 1, in the passage that we read, we see God's original purpose, original intent for humans. And his original intent was for people to manage his creation and multiply his blessings for his glory. And the reality is, when you go to 2 Corinthians chapter 9, you see a continuation of this after the fall, after man blew it, that in the New Testament we see the same design that God has redeemed us through giving and generosity. So let me unpack this just for a moment. So first of all, when I say the word steward, for some of us, we're not quite sure what that means. It's not regular language that we use, but stewardship is like a manager. You're managing something. Stewardship is another way of saying it is that you really owning something. You know how you see somebody go, girl, you owning that dress now. That is you. You are working it. You know what I'm saying? Or someone who does something that's incredible, or someone you just go, man, they own that. Once again, when you look at Ja Morant or when you look at LeBron, I'm still going to say LeBron. When you look here at different players, Wemby and what have you in basketball, you go, man, they are owning that. You know what I'm saying? Or you may use it this way. Last week, I can say this, the Commanders got owned by Dallas. You know what I'm saying? They were owning them. Doesn't mean they actually own them, but what owning really means is that you are managing this. You are fully engaged in this. When the Bible talks about stewardship, here's what's interesting though. It's that you are managing something that belongs to someone else. You are managing something that belongs to someone else. Genesis chapter 1 reminds us of this. Genesis chapter 1, the first chapter, it reminds us that the earth, the moon, the light, the darkness, all of that God has created. And you begin to read through Genesis chapter 1, the waters and how he separates the waters. And he called the expanse heaven. And then he even created days, morning, and nights. And what's interesting here is every time after God created something, he said it was good. That idea of it was good doesn't just mean, yeah, I like it. Oh, whoa, yeah, that works. Now, it was good means good, it's complete. It's functioning the way that it should function. That's what it means when it says it was good. When you look here in the text, the reality is everything around us, God is the one who created it. Time, God created that. Day, night, God created that. Well, then if God created time, if he created day and night, that alone makes it clear for you and for me this morning that the crops that produce the food that we eat wouldn't even be in existence if it wasn't for God. That means that if God is the creator of all, then guess what that means? Everything belongs to him. And what Moses is trying to teach Israel is, first of all, you are not an owner. I know you think you are. But give me anything that you think you own, and I guarantee you if it wasn't for God, you wouldn't have it. You say, wait a minute, Pastor White, I kind of own my space. Oh, listen, God is the one who created for you to even have air to breathe, so you don't own that. No, Pastor White, look, that's my car out there. I own that. Really? God is the one who created man with the knowledge to even be able to design your car, but then he even created the ground that produces the rubber and the metal material that you have. Wait a minute, Pastor White, I own my house. Really? Really? No, God is the one who even gave you the ability to get a house. Do I need to remind you when you were a struggling college student and you got a 1.5 and didn't know if you're going to graduate and somehow your tail still made it across the stage? Can I just remind you that you ought to know you don't own anything, because if it hadn't been for him, you wouldn't even have that job that you lost or you've been laid off of. I know that's depressing for some of us, and there's a layoff season, but you wouldn't even have a job to be laid off from. So how dare you think that you're an owner? Now, Genesis reminds us that you're a manager. That when you look at your spreadsheet, that if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have anything. Let me say it to you this way. So here's what this means. We are managers, not owners. And we're not manufacturers. Don't think that you can produce and create something. So right now, notice here that the only way that I'm able to produce and create something, or you say, well, I don't need God, I can do it myself. You can't create, listen, you can't even create your best self. But we can be multipliers. We can be managers and we can be multipliers. First of all, God has designed us to manage. Look what it says in verse 28. And God blessed them. He's now created Adam and Eve, you all. He's created the two of them, and the two are to become one flesh later on in chapter 2. And then when you see that he's created Adam and Eve, and at the end of Genesis chapter 1, it says here something interesting here. Everything else was good, but then in verse 31, and God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning and the sixth day. In other words, after God got finished doing all of creation, he says it is very good. It's not just enough, it's more than enough. But look at what it says. First of all, when he's created Adam and Eve, he does something here. In verse 28, it says, and God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heaven, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. And God said, behold, I've given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree and with seed and its fruit, and you shall have them for food. Can I just say to you, first of all, God's designed us to manage, that God created us, when you look here in the origin story. But here's what blows my mind. He creates us, and there's responsibility. This is where you've been taught wrong that work is of the devil. This is where you've taught wrong that work came after the fall. Can I just say to you, we are managers, and how God has designed us, he's designed us to work. Now, that work is not work that starts when you go to your 9 to 5. That work starts when you get up in the morning. God has designed you and I to not have a meaningless life, but to have a purposeful life, and it's called work. And what's so interesting here, he's given them work, and what does he call work? He says it was very good. The truth of the matter is that work is good, you all. It is good that your hands can do something. It is good for you to clean. It is good for you to wash dishes. It is good for you to take care. It is good. It is hard. That is what God created you for. Before sin came into the world, it was good. But then check this out. He tells them, here's what I want you to do. He says, I want you to subdue it. I want you to have dominion over the fish of the sea and over every living thing. In verse 28, he tells them, here's your job description. Here's what you're supposed to do. But y'all, check this out. It isn't until they get their work to do that they get their reward later. That the reward comes from every seed bearing fruit to multiply. Can I just say this here just for a moment? God created us with responsibility before we get the reward. You don't get to be the way some of our children are. Is there a treat? What am I going to get out of it? Listen, let me stay here for a second, because I understand what does it mean for me, but you and I have been created for stewards, designed to work not based on the reward, but based on the fact that God has created me. And he's designed me for work. 3 tasks in your job description. First of all, be fruitful and multiply. That your life is to be about productivity, but not addition, but multiplication. You say, Pastor White, what difference does that make? Here's what difference does that make. It doesn't matter what job you have or your job isn't big enough. The reality of your job is there should be a multiplying effect. Multiplying doesn't need 10, 12 people. You multiply even from one. Your job is to have a multiplying effect, that you should be impacting someone or something with your work that is multiplying. Even if you are one person all alone, surrounded by those who don't love you, don't like you, those of you who complain ain't no Christians on my job, I'm going through, Pastor White. But you've been designed, even if you're the only one, to still be able to be a multiplier. Then not only that, I want you to fill the earth and subdue it. That's about stewardship. I want you to multiply, but then I don't want you to let the earth take over you. I want you to subdue the earth. Y'all ever notice that when you, let me just tell you this. I'm just going to put my business out in the street. Sometimes, I'm going to talk about what y'all want to talk about, my closet. Sometimes my closet, guess what? Because I haven't worked to keep some things in order. Now, don't hate me. I know where my stuff is, but but you just don't want to come in my closet, just to say that. You might not come to the church anymore. But guess what's happened? Because I haven't worked to put some things where they need to be, the closet has subdued me rather than subduing it. It has taken me over. Why? Because my anxiety, and then I started blaming people. Came back. Hey, who got? I bet they done took my T-shirt. I bet. Okay, honey, you got to shake your head right now. I bet somebody got my stuff. You can't have nothing around here. You know, and then you look and you see them, and here's the problem. The problem is I haven't put the work in, and it has subdued me. Let me ask you a question. Where is it that you haven't put the work in, and it's subduing you right now? What is it that you're frustrated with someone about? Maybe you and I haven't done the work that we need to do to be able to accomplish what we need to accomplish on our job, and you're mad with the wrong person because those emails that you won't clean up, that you won't do, it is subduing you right now. But then he says this, I also want you to have dominion. Dominion doesn't mean you need to dominate. But it means you do need to walk in a sense of control. Notice God never said, you all, to own the earth. He didn't say, Adam and Eve, I want you to own the earth. All I want you to do is to manage it. Here's why. I spent the first part of 25 verses so that you would know I'm the owner. I'm the one who owns it. All I need you to do is manage what I own. And when we manage things right, we reflect once again who God is. I'm convicted on this. I'm not good. This is why a lot of times, thank God for my wife. But there's some things I'm not good with managing, but God has designed me to manage. This message has convicted me. The reality is, well, we're called to manage so that the world can see God's goodness. Now, here's the thing that's so interesting to me. Let me help you understand, and I thought about it this way. Imagine, and I've used this illustration before, and last time I did it, and it didn't, somebody kind of looked at me in a different way. I won't call no names, but imagine if I said, let me borrow your car. Let me borrow your car. Oh, there's some keys ready. Okay, good. There's a certain kind of cars during the parking lot that I want to borrow. Not that I'm shaming your car, but no name. So anyway, but if I borrow your car and you hand me the keys, guess what's interesting here about it? First of all, if I bring it back with a scratch, or if I bring it back to where I get a speeding ticket, or if somebody bumped me, because it really was them who bumped me, there's somebody who those of you who just got new cars, I may come to you. And so here's the thing that you think about, first of all, before you lend me your car. There's something that goes through your mind. One, can they afford it? Because if I let you use my car, are you going to be able to take care of it? Secondly, is he a good driver? Thirdly, does he have good insurance? Because it ain't going to be on my insurance. It's going to be on theirs. So you take it through a litmus test, because before you will loan them your car, you sort of do a profile. Here's what's so incredible. You will give me the keys to your car. Why? If you trust me. Here's what's mind-blowing to me about this text, you all. This is mind-blowing. It's not so much do I trust God, but that God trusts me. What's so incredible that you and I ought to think about, that the air we breathe, the job we have, the stewardship that we own, is God is saying, I trust you to rule and subdue. I trust you to have dominion over. The reality is this, to where I should have joy in my work. It's why? Because God is saying, I trust you. And often when we misuse what God has entrusted to us, what he's given us to manage, is we somehow think we're the owner. Stewardship means that I'm caring because of who this belongs to. Stewardship means I'm not in control, but my life belongs to you. Stewardship means this work belongs to you. God has designed us to be stewards to manage what he's made and multiply what he's given. But secondly, here's what happens. Just as we know here in the text, it didn't take long before Israel, chapter 3, Adam and Eve, they blew it. Adam and Eve blew it, and now everything has been flipped on its head. God gave them this to manage, wanted them to be managers. And again, the evil one came and made it complicated and thought, man, you can be like God. You know good and evil. And the same reality, look, don't be angry with Adam and Eve. We are just like our origin family. Somehow, y'all, we think we can manage it and own it on our own. As a matter of fact, you might be frustrated with this message because you say, Pastor White, how dare you tell me what to do with my money? I know where this is going, Pastor White. You're going to get into this stewardship thing and make me become a giver. No, I'm not just talking about your money. I'm talking about your life period, because real stewardship is not just your money, but it's your time as well, too. It's your time, it's your money, it's everything that you do, because you do know you don't own your time. You do know that God has numbered your days. If you don't believe me, trust me, we got some examples right here in this body. Miss Judy, a saint. Why did God take her away? And those of you may not know Miss Judy, but here she was, a Dallas seminary person, godly woman, prayer warrior, incredible, and God took her home. Why? Because she's not in control of her time. Some of you have lost loved ones right now, and it wasn't because it was their time. Why? Because you're not in control of your time. Can I just suggest something to you? You're not even in control of your time. But we think we are. You think that you can design your life the way you want to design your life. That somehow I'm in control. I can vacation when I want to vacation. I can do what I want to do. Don't have to go to church. You're not my boss, Pastor White. You don't tell me what to do. I don't tell you what to do, but all I'm trying to explain is what God has given you. And your time doesn't belong to you. But we live like it does. We live like, you can't meddle in my business. It's not even your business. You ought to change our language. We ought to start telling people you can't meddle in God's business because you ain't got no business. You sound like a toddler. You sound like a 5-year-old telling the parents, don't tell me to clean up my room. This is my room. You ain't pay for this house. You won't even eat unless I say eat. But we got nerve enough to say, this is my room, this is my house, don't meddle, this is my job. We sound like 5-year-olds talking to the Heavenly Father who says you wouldn't have anything unless I give it to you. And I get to call you home time up when I want to. All the more reason I want to manage it well right now. And we better correct what we told our kids, that this is your life and you can be and do whatever you want to do. We better correct that. No, this is God's life. This is what God has given you, because I wouldn't even have had you in the world. And baby, let me tell you something. You wouldn't even be where you are if it wasn't for God. Some of us better tell our spouses who we get into arguments, say, this is my area, this is my issue. And y'all fighting over stuff that don't belong to you. You might make more money and might pay more bills, and then y'all got the audacity to split the bills up. You do yours, you do mine. Can I just suggest some of you save some headache because it all belongs to him. You are managers, not owners. Now, if you're online, I'm taking longer to shepherd the people of Christ our King. And if you're not a member of our church, you don't have to listen to this, but I'm trying to love and shepherd the people of Christ our King Community Church. So this is going to be a 2-part message. I ain't going to finish today, and I'm not going to hold you too long because it's God's time. But secondly, God restored stewardship through deliverance. He restored stewardship through deliverance. I want you to hear this. And this is where you just got to have to read the story. But you see later in Genesis that they couldn't get the stewardship thing right. God allows them to go into captivity. What was a refuge in Egypt through Joseph at the end of Genesis, when you start the book of Exodus, God's people get enslaved. the place that was supposed to be a place of hope because of the famine that was in the land and because their boy Joseph was prime minister and a leader, that Israel now goes and they find refuge in Egypt. But then in Exodus chapter 1, there's this phrase in chapter 1, there arose a Pharaoh that didn't know Joseph. Can I just tell you, be careful of thinking your ownership plans will work. Be careful of thinking you got safety because you done hooked up with the right people. Be careful because you got your network. You networking, and because you done gone and got the network, and look at who I know. Your LinkedIn profile has all these people you done. Be careful placing your trust in that, because often the very thing that you think is going to deliver you becomes the thing that enslaves you. The very thing that you think is going to be your hope becomes the thing that becomes your captive. And in Exodus, this is what happens to Israel. And now Israel takes place. And there are humans like us who decide that they're not going to live up to God's original design. And what happens, the sin comes in, and stewardship now turns into ownership. And then dominion turns into being dominated over. When you get to Exodus, you see Israel is in Egypt, and now they are enslaved. The opposite of stewardship, I believe, is slavery. The opposite of stewardship is slavery. You don't want to steward God's resources. You don't want to steward what God has given to you well. The opposite, when you look here at this story, is slavery. So now they got a different leader. They've got a Pharaoh who is everything opposite to what God has designed. Their leader now has enslaved them for hundreds of years, and rather than sharing, rather than saying once again, you can be fruitful and multiply, in Exodus chapter 1, you see that Pharaoh gets intimidated, and he now does infanticide. He now is going to create a genocide because he's afraid of Israel's growth, and he's now put a hit out on all firstborn. Be careful with those who you think can give you life, because often the pharaohs, the gods that we worship here, will take away from you and make it seem like they're protecting and giving to you. And what happens now is you now got a hoarder. You not only have a hoarder, but one of the things God says he wanted to cultivate your life. Now the Pharaoh is going to control your life rather than cultivating your life. And what does he do? He's building Egypt, his kingdom, through slavery rather than building it through stewardship. Hey, listen, Egypt is just a picture of what happens when humanity forgets who owns everything. You can start a whole nation around thinking you own everything. Listen, a nation where you got someone who says, we're going to decide to do this for my purposes. So for my purposes, we're going to change the narrative. And rather than everyone who, according to Genesis chapter 1, is created in the imago Dei, in the image of God, we even going to say that people who even hear that they're not in the image of God, so I can justify brutally annihilating indigenous people. As a matter of fact, we're going to create another false narrative and say that these people who have darker skin really are born less, not really in the image of God. They're even like animals, and therefore it's going to justify us to enslave them. Isn't that a crazy? And then after we enslave them, we're going to give them the illusion that we're going to set them free, and then we're going to take them through another 90 years of Jim Crow, separate but equal. Let me stop here for a moment before you get riled up. Here, don't get riled up, but I got a question. What stories are you telling yourself so that God isn't your king? What are you telling yourself so that you can be your Pharaoh? What are the lies that you've been telling yourself? Have you been telling yourself you're not as bad as other people? Have you been telling yourself, I deserve this? that it's my season, it's my time, it's my inheritance? Have you been telling yourself that? Can I just say to you, first of all, it's never your season. It is God's season, who you wanted to be God's season, because he has a way of blessing you in season and out of season. Can I just tell you that? But before you get mad with America, what about you? What have you been telling yourself? Who have you been blaming? What narrative have you been saying in order to justify that you need to be an owner rather than a manager? And Israel is a picture. And Egypt reminds us of here's what happens when people forget that God owns everything. So what does God do? God comes in and he delivers Israel from Egypt. And here's the thing. He's not just freeing them from their slavery, but he's freeing them from a false view of ownership. Can I say that again? He's not just getting them out of Egypt. But for 400 years, they've had a false view of ownership. And here's what his freedom's going to do. I'm going to free you because I want to change your view of ownership. That's why he writes to them in Genesis chapter 1. And he says, Moses gave this to Israel as they were going through their wilderness journey. Commentaries suggest, what is God trying to do? I'm trying to free you. Because for 400 years, you actually think that, again, the imago Dei, the image of God, only rests on kings. I'm letting you know that the image of God rests on you. You don't have to be a king because all of you are in my image. Some of us, this is where, again, we have false worship of people. Don't ever have pastor worship. Don't ever have worship of any government official. Don't ever think your hope is going to come from a person. No, God says you are a steward. Your hope is found in me. Here's what's so incredible. I want to use you. God is saying that, listen, you spent generations working for Pharaoh's glory. You were producing bricks for buildings. Now God is saying, I want you to get set free and work for my glory. I want you to cultivate blessing and justice in the promised land. God even reframes things in Exodus chapter 19, verse 6. Here's what he says. He says, you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. He's using stewardship language right now, you all. He's saying you're not owned by Pharaoh. You belong to me. You're no longer slaves of Pharaoh building the kingdom of Egypt. You're now building the kingdom of God. And God is reminding them through disciplines, you got to get a new mindset. What he's doing here is trying to help them understand you are a manager. You've been owned, but you are a manager. What does he do? He's giving them a mindset. The reason for the Sabbath isn't because they're tired. Isn't because you just need rest. The reason for the Sabbath is you work 7 days for Pharaoh, but in freedom. I want you to take 1 day for me. And the reason for the Sabbath is a rest, not just from your work, but it's a rest as unto me, so that you would know I'm not like Pharaoh. We can get the job done with 6 days. We don't need 7 days. I'm not a slave master. You're not defined, this was convicting, you're not defined by what you produce. You're defined by who you are. Ouch. You're not defined by the job you got. You're not defined by how much is in your bank account. You're not defined by how many followers you have. You are defined because you are my child, created in the image of God. You're not defined because you were a household mother. You're not defined because you raised kids. You're not defined by that. You're not defined because of your education, your degree. You're defined because you belong to me. It's not ownership. It is stewardship. Why does he want them to tithe? What was the tithe for? Listen, I'm sorry for those who were told you got to pay God first and then you pay yourself. First of all, you don't understand. He's not an owner that he needs your pennies. you don't pay God anything. And let me just say this as well, too. You don't tithe in order to be blessed. You take that one passage out of context, he opens up the window of heaven and pour you out a blessing that there's not room enough to receive it. And some of y'all probably don't tithe or give because you're already getting the windows of heaven open, so you ain't need to put no money in any ways. Listen, the tithing was not a reminder that you owe God something. Tithing for Israel, give them a tenth, because it reminds you that you belong to God. The reason for giving is so that you wouldn't trust in your resources, but that you'll trust in him. If he owns it all, then some of us are in sin if we only give 10%. Because you're stingy. You'd rather work out a contract with God than be in covenant with God. Because you certainly know that God has done far more to you that you can't repay, and you got more than what you need. And so for some of us, we use 10% as a crutch, and it still doesn't get to the crux of how you're doing. Because I've known some wicked 10%ers. I've known some, and I'm not talking about the 10% nation for some of y'all who may be confused. Listen, I've known some church folk who could tithe and couldn't speak to you after church. I've known some church folk who were great tithers, and because they tithed, they thought they owned the church. And listen, because they gave, they thought they could tell the pastor what to do, how to preach. As a matter of fact, we're going to take your tithe. I'm going to take my tithe away, Pastor. You better vote on this in the right way and everything. Can I just say to you, first of all, that is such a misnomer. And I hope I set some pastors free here right now, because if somebody think they're paying you, can I just tell you, you've got a God that will supply any 10% that anybody provides. And certainly most of us know that the church isn't surviving off of tithing in many ways, because many times in many churches, only 20% of the church is even tithing, you all. And the finance team let me know that our church fits that category as well. You say, Pastor White, you putting out business out in the street? Absolutely, because at some point, we got to ask ourselves in many ways, do we belong to God? Are we owning him, or are we being managers and trusting with what he has given to us? I have no celebration for progress without provision, without understanding that you are giving to God. He says, I need y'all to tithe, Israel, so you can know I'm not taxing you. I'm just training you to trust me. And finally, they had the year of Jubilee in Leviticus chapter 25. Every 50 years, slaves were set free and returned to their families. Why? Because the reality is the land and the work belongs to God. Slavery says you belong to Pharaoh, but stewardship says I belong to God. And even in this moment that we're in right now, God, am I living as a manager, or am I being owned? Maybe you're so frustrated with the current president of the United States because you're being owned. Maybe you're frustrated with the job loss and the government reality. That is a reality. But maybe your job might have owned you. Man, God, thank you for teaching me that. Your job shouldn't own you. God is the one who provides for you. And here's the reality as well, too. If we really understood that we're managing things, if someone is struggling in this body, we should be the people to come and help and care for those people. Here's why. Not because you're so good and you're giving benevolence, but you're doing it because whatever I have, it belongs to him. It does not belong to me. This morning, maybe I'm frustrated with certain things because I'm being owned by that. What's so crazy is how we're upset with the president building an East Wing. He done tore down a sacred part. Here's the thing. We mad. That's he say he paying for it himself, but that's taxpayers' dollars. How dare he take taxpayers' dollars and do, and first it was supposed to be 200 and some million. Now it's going to 300 and some million. How could he take my taxpayers' money and go off on what he wants to do? As a matter of fact, he got ugly stuff anyway if you look at what he builds and what have. And so we just angry, upset with the president. And you know what? I got paused for a moment because I wonder if have I taken resources and built things that God never asked me to build. I wonder if we've taken not something worse than taxpayers' money. We've taken money that God has given to us and spent it on what we've wanted to spend it on. I wonder if we can see ourselves. Listen, this morning, God has designed us to be stewards, to manage what he's made and multiply what he gives. This morning, my hope for you is that you would understand that we, of all people, should be stewards. You say, Pastor White, why? Because in the New Testament it says we've been bought with a price. In the New Testament it says we've been bought with a price, with the blood of Jesus Christ. This morning, my hope for us is that we wouldn't think that we're owners, but that we serve a God that says, I trust you, James. I trust you, teenager. I trust you. I trust you, Larry. I trust you. I'm getting ready to lose my job, but I trust you. Do you know what my bank account is like? I trust you. Do you know I'm not good with money? I trust you. Do you know how selfish I've been in the past, even with my time? I trust you. And why do I trust you? Because there is a Redeemer. His name is Jesus Christ. My only begotten Son died on the cross for your sins. He's washed you in his blood. I don't just see you. I see my son Jesus. But here's what's so beautiful in this message. God still trusts us. I trust you with the money that you've been selfish with. I trust you even though you've been selfish with your time. I trust you that life has been about you and you think you're an owner when really you're a manager because of all that I've given you. The beautiful part about this text is he didn't give up on humanity. And he hadn't given up on us. This morning, my hope for us is that you know God has designed you to be a steward, to manage what he's made and multiply what he gives. May we do it well because of he's already purchased us with his most precious possession, his son. Father, thank you for how you are at work. Father, I confess that I've forgotten some things here, but now, Lord, I remember. And God, I'm just so thankful and amazed that you are the one who is the owner. You have provided. But God, you've invited us to manage what you've given us. God, would you set us free from our American ideal that it is about us? God, would you stop maybe some of the projects that we have put in place that had nothing to do with you, but had all to do with me? Oh, God, thank you. And Lord, here's what's so incredible. You will multiply. Lord, I just pray that there's some people here who would begin giving again. And here's what I love, Lord. You're a multiplying God. If all you got is $1, God said, I can take that dollar and provide for a missionary. I can take. This is why you love the widow's mite, because she said, no, you are the one who is the owner, and I'm going to trust you. I pray some of us who say we have no time, if we just give a little bit more of our time, God, you will multiply it. And it's in your name, Jesus, that we want to trust you the way you trust us. May you still be at work. Teach us how to manage. Stop us from owning. Jesus'